people are trying to explore their faith themselves. So they say, oh, Jesus is just a storybook character. He is not. He is a historical fact.
So we will know he is a historical fact. His life and his teachings are, in fact, historical fact by knowing this, that no one else told these things before him or after him. In the sense, he is the sole inventor of these radical things that we are discussing today.
All right, welcome to the Pete Speaks with Grace podcast. I am Deacon Pete, and this is Dr. Grace. We want to welcome you to our show. We have been very busy lately, haven't we, Grace? We have. It's almost summertime in Atlanta. I have to say, we're going to earn our nickname of Hot Atlanta this summer based on the weather here in May. It's not even Memorial Day, and it's already scorching hot.
90s?
Almost 90. My car has been right about 90. So, yeah. So, I grew up in the Chicago area. And when I was a child, summer was so beautiful in Chicago. The weather was awesome. It was always very, it'd be spring-like weather in Atlanta was summer-like weather in Chicago when I was a child. Now it gets a bit hotter up there because of all the heat.
And the global warming.
The global warming. I was avoiding that word. Controversy. All right. Well, hey, that brings me to thinking about something I was reading today. I'm a little behind in the news, and I was reading this controversial article on the intraweb, to quote George W. On the intraweb, I was reading about Harrison Butker. He's a kicker of the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Kansas City Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. So there has not been a lot of NFL news lately. So whenever anything happens in the NFL, it becomes top of the line, front page news. So Harrison was giving some remarks at a graduation. I think it was for a Catholic university. And what he decided to do was provide criticism of society, kind of a critique of society moral values against Catholicism. His main point that I'll point out, he had a number of points in this speech, but his main point that I thought brought some controversy was men were not being rewarded for being masculine in society, and women were not being rewarded for being feminine. And when I say feminine, it's not feminist, it's feminine.
Yeah, I was reading that article too. He was actually, how women should be mothers, how being mother is really good. In fact, he was highlighting the positive aspects of both the genders.
Right. So I may hesitate to judge him. We're not going to judge him, but I think he may have got a little over exuberant because he was talking about, a woman in the home and a man in the home and where their place was and all that type of stuff. But the bottom line, I think the bottom line was be bold. You're a Catholic, be bold. Embrace Catholic values, embrace your femininity, embrace your masculinity.
I think he was highlighting the importance of family.
That's right.
Because if women are not at home to raise children, and if men are not at home to raise children, how do they get motherly and fatherly love? Maybe something like that, but then basically about family.
So the media wants him out of the NFL. They want to kick him out. What is Harrison Butker? I ask you, our audience, is he a radical or is he stupid? Should he have not said those things? In the news also, just recently, and it's been going on for weeks, we have the controversy, the war in Israel and the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. So in the news has been the campus sit-ins. And the campus sit-ins, these are people that are doing, they have all kinds of demonstrations. You're trying to put a stop to campus life in some regard. Many of them are going beyond where protest really should be in many people's opinions. Right. Some are even going on hunger strikes. So there's a lot happening on college campuses today, and the fear is that the hate is going to extend not to the war itself, let there be peace being the message, but the hate drags into hating people for who they are as a group, which can fall into anti-Semitism and prejudice. So what about these guys on the campus?
So are you trying to say that it's not just against a war or violence, this is against a group of people, which is right?
No, I think it starts against a war. It's starting against leaders in a country. But what it's doing is it's pushing hate out into society and allowing society to embrace prejudice and hatred of groups of people. Rather than hating the war in Israel, there are people out there now who are hating Jewish people.
Right. Almost like dissolve that nation altogether sort of thing.
That's right. So where's the line? Are these radicals?
Or are
these
they
people
plain stupid? Is that what you're asking?
Or are they stupid? That's right. Are they radical or are they stupid? What's the difference? I think you ask one person, they'll tell you radical. Another person will say, tear them off the campus. They're stupid, right? So I hate using that word stupid. My mom, when I was in Catholic school, I think we would have to eat soap for saying that word. You would bite a bar of Irish Spring. That was our punishment at St. Mary's Catholic School in Elgin, Illinois. And what was his name? He was Irish. Mr. Kelly, I think his name was our principal. Mr. Kelly, if you're listening, that Irish Spring was not delicious. All right? Not delicious.
I guess you have eaten quite a bit.
It would make me go, No, you didn't eat it. You bit off the bar that everybody else was biting off, by the way. You chewed, and then he said, go spit it out.
Oh, okay. That's better.
But you had that taste of Irish Spring in your mouth for quite some time. It was awful.
Okay.
What about in your sweet school in India?
I don't
What
think...
was the punishment? You don't remember? All right.
This was a girls' school, so it was different than... I don't know. Okay?
It was an all-girls school. All right. So my fifth grade teacher, Mr. Mickelson, his punishment for any offense, the offense could be laziness, falling asleep in class. It could be making a sound, okay? It could be making somebody laugh. Like if I made Grace laugh over here, he would not go to Grace. He would come to me, all right? And his punishment was yanking the hair out of your head. He would shake your head,
Jeez.
okay? This was fifth grade.
That's bad.
Now, I don't know if teachers are allowed to do this today.
No.
I would say
no.
But I'll be honest with you. We never went home and told mom and dad, because if we went home and told mom and dad, punishment again. Okay? They weren't going to the school and complaining. Right. They knew we did something wrong, and they said, what did you do wrong? Boom. Right. Now to your room, no dinner for you.
Right. That's the same thing in my school also. I mean, back like when we were growing up, if we are saying something that happened in the school, parents wouldn't be siding with us. Instead, they say, why did you do that, right?
Right. So I heard from many teachers out there that today parents side with the kids, not with the teachers. Right. It makes it very difficult to teach. All right, so we digress. All right. So the big question of the day, we got this man in history. We're trying to follow him. We're saying, Jesus Christ is our Savior. But the history of Jesus Christ was that he was out there pronouncing different things. And we're going to talk about a few of these things. But he was pronouncing things, and he was arrested, and they killed him for it. Was he a radical? Or was Jesus Christ considered, I'm not going to use this stupid word, was Jesus Christ just considered some human being who had poor judgment? Or was he a radical?
So the thing about Jesus is across the history, we have so many people who have influenced the world that ideas have stood the test of time, right? Many people. But is there anyone as radical or as dramatically radical as Jesus was? I don't think there's anyone who changed the course of history like Jesus did with his ideas and with his style of living. So especially, right? His ideas, his words, his teachings, as well as the way he lived, right?
That's right. Many of our listeners may be saying, I don't know if Jesus was or wasn't. I don't know him well enough, right? All they know about him was he's in the Bible. There's a lot of people out there who worship him. They know religion. There's all this stuff that they think they know about Jesus, but they've never really dug into what's really said about him. And
I
maybe
think if we just Google or something, we would see that he founded Christianity. Maybe that's the definition that we might read. But is it just that, right? What exactly is the life of Jesus that made such an impact in the history of the world?
That's right. So I'm going to list a few things that he did, and you tell me how radical was this during the time.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing he did was he did not walk past sinners, bad people that were not respected. So, for example, a tax collector was often ripping people off. He did not walk past them. He approached them and tried to turn them from their evil ways to goodness. So, was that radical in that day?
It was, right? So I think the basic principle that Jesus lived on and taught was inclusivity in that sense, right? Because he was part of Jewish culture, and people who do not belong to the Jewish culture or Jewish religion were considered like Gentiles. They were not highly esteemed in the society first. And also people who betrayed their culture and identity, like the tax collectors who stood with the Romans and collected taxes from their own people. So Jews couldn't bear that fact that Jesus would stay with them, accept sinners and tax collectors. Particularly, we see again and again how Jesus would host dinners, or if his disciples, like in Matthew, when he was hosting a dinner, all the tax collectors would be there, sinners would be there, and then Pharisees would be asking, how do you do this? Why do you do this? And then Jesus says, I came for the sinners, in search of sinners. Like it is the sick who need the doctor.
Right.
But basically, he just didn't preach about them. He lived that life. He lived with them. Right?
So when you look at the apostles and Matthew being an apostle, he was a tax collector. Jesus did not say, hey, keep ripping people off, keep being a cheat, but believe in me. And this is something I think our society today misses the boat on. Jesus did not say, keep sinning, Matthew. Jesus said, stop sinning, repent, change your ways, and follow me. Follow what I do, and you will be on the right path.
Right.
So how about this? He was saying this in front of people, that God is my Father.
Mm-hmm. That again,
controversial in the day?
It is. So
really?
Most probably, because why? Probably the only person who might have called God Father before that might be David or Elijah. Because for Jewish people, Yahweh was, they won't even use the word, right? They would say Adonai, because they cannot utter the word of God with their mouth. So they would say Adonai, which means the Lord. Okay.
There was no connection with God as a fatherly figure.
Right. God was God, the supreme power, and he's judgmental. Whether if you do good, I'm going to reward you. If you do bad, I'm going to punish you. That sort of a God, right? Mm-hmm. And across the world, all the religions, no religion could really have this idea of a Father God before Jesus. And the prayer that Jesus taught was, our Father who art in heaven, encouraging everyone to call God as Father. And not only that, he lived that life. He would say, let your light shine before others so that people will know about the Father, right? So he's always referring to God as his own Father, and meanwhile encouraging everyone to do that.
So we today are 2,000 years separated from this man proclaiming God to be his Father. Yeah. But the people of that day, they took personal offense to him saying that. They wanted to throw him over a cliff. They did not appreciate those comments from him. They said, "Who is this man that
One of
thinks he
the
can do this?"
one of the accusations during the trial of Jesus, one of the accusations was that he dared to call God Father, equaling him to God, right? Because if I am calling God my Father, then I'm his daughter. I am like God, right? So he equaled himself to God. Called God Father was one of their chief accusation. So how radical is that?
And
You
as a
know?
Christian, I think it's so important that we research this question, because Jesus was either a truthful person, God was his father, he was the Son of God, as he said he was, or he was a liar, right? Or he was a liar. And if he was a liar, he was nothing.
So history might have proved that if he was, right?
Would history not have proved that?
Right.
Very, very much closer to, we're 2,000 years away. And history has not proven that Jesus is a liar. Yet people are trying to explore their faith themselves. So they say, oh, Jesus is just a storybook character. He is not. He is a historical fact.
So we will know he is a historical fact. His life and his teachings are in fact historical fact by knowing this, that no one else told these things before him or after him. In the sense, he is the sole inventor of these radical things that we are discussing today. That itself is a proof. Otherwise, who said those things, right? If it's not Jesus, who did such a lifestyle, who introduced such a lifestyle, who dared to call God the Father, his own Father. And then even today, when we look into heavens, we connect with God. Many people connect with God as a fatherly figure. Started from there. There should be an origin for that idea, right?
That's right. And the answer is radical, not
Right.
stupid, radical.
Right. And one another thing, the real radical nature of Christ and his teachings and his life is that we can connect with him and lead the same strong life, influential life in this world. Whatever are our problems, whatever are our difficulties, we still have this hope of resurrection from that, because Jesus did that for us, and connected to him, we have the same power to do that. Again, Pete, something that really intrigues me is this. When Jesus died on the cross, there were only very few people near him, a couple women and John, right? No one else except these people all were his enemies who wanted to crucify him. And then they buried him, right?
Right.
And his disciples, the 11 of them, one of them died, the other fled, right? So he was left alone. How did this Christianity come about and become the largest religion in this world? From that person who died alone, was buried and sealed as if he's no more.
Right.
No tomb can prevent him, his victory and his influence in this world. That radical was his life.
Yeah, maybe for another day, we will explore the history that was fulfilled by Jesus Christ, the Old Testament prophecies that were fulfilled, and there were over 300. Now, I heard the odds of any human being fulfilling just a small number of those prophecies are astronomical. And the odds of any human being fulfilling those 300 prophecies, they're impossible.
Right.
Impossible. All right, so how about this one? All right. So, for those of you who think we're being a little harsh because we're saying radical or stupid, it's reminding me of a movie. I think it was called Stripes. You don't remember this? Bill Murray?
I haven't watched
I
it.
believe it was Stripes and Bill Murray where the sergeant says, "Lighten up, Francis."
So this is very intense. Is this?
Don't get too riled up. Don't be driving off the road. Don't be, hitting your steering wheel. It's okay. We're just having a discussion here. All right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So how about this? His disregard for money richness, the disregard of money richness and poverty, which is like the parable of the laborers. Well, I don't even get that. That doesn't even make any sense. We're going to have to cut this out.
Yeah. Disregard of money.
We won't even cut this out. We'll just keep it rolling. We'll keep it rolling. You give me this. What are we talking about here? These are your notes. I can't even read them.
Right. Disregard of money. And then richness of poverty.
I should know this. I work to fight poverty. That's my job. So we have disregard of money, dash, which means and. I didn't realize that's meant and. Richness of poverty. I think what I don't know how radical that is in the day, but I'll just say in every day, there are people that have full trust in God. And I have to admit, when I was young, much younger, so young, in my 20s, in my 30s, we had no real nest egg. We just didn't have it. So there was a little bit of savings, but not a lot. So when something drastic happened, refrigerator broke, hot water heater broke, had to... lost a job, something drastic happened. Wow. I mean, how are we going to survive? But we had very high amount of faith, and we survived through our faith in God. God always provided for us. He never wrote us a check for $1 million. That just never happened. But God always provided with what we needed.
Right.
Now, when it comes to poverty, what Jesus was asking was, trust God. Don't connect yourself so tightly with money and things. Trust God and help your neighbor. And he tied poverty into love of neighbor and love of God. So I don't know that it was radical. It definitely wasn't stupid, right? But I don't know that it was radical. But it was definitely against the grain because people were trying to survive for their own families. They were trying to provide for their own families. And maybe during that time, they weren't as giving as they should be.
Yeah, so one important aspect of it is that, everywhere across the world, people who have money, people who have wealth are esteemed. Mm-hmm. So Jesus did not esteem people based on that and taught esteem should not be equaled with wealth. So he would always advise people to give, right? To rich people, sell your possessions, and give them, distribute them to poor people. Then you will have treasure in heaven. And then come and follow me.
Right. And he even told that man the man said, hey, Jesus, I've been following you. I've been doing what you've asked. Right. Help me out here. Is there anything else I can do for you? And Jesus said, sell your possessions and give them to the poor.
And then come and follow me.
Right? Yeah. Trust me enough.
And we see that young man went away sad because he had a lot of wealth, right? Mm-hmm. So that was the attitude of Jesus, right? And then he lived a life of that sort because Jesus says, birds have their nest, wolves have their place to take a rest, but the Son of Man have no place to rest his head.
Right.
So that was a life that Jesus himself led. He chose a life of poverty because there is wealth in poverty, and he wanted us all to realize that. It's not hoarding that makes a person rich, it is giving so that these things will reach heaven where we will really have treasures. So that's one thing. And look at this Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, right? Who are the blessed? Till then, blessed was the wealthy man. Blessed is the rich man and not Lazarus who was, lying down at his doorstep, right?
Right.
Blessed was always the people who had wealth, who had status, who had influence, like Pharisees and high priests and all those people.
Yeah, if you were wealthy, God was rewarding you. If you were poor, God was punishing you right. or punishing you for your family history.
Right.
So
right.
Jesus came to debunk that concept.
Right. Drastically, radically changed that concept, saying that blessed are the poor. Blessed are the poor, right?
Right. And I will say, in this controversy within our society, there's a lot of fighting within society today. I know the Catholic position, and there's Catholics who are very conservative in their views. But what I will say is the United States was set up as a free country for the purpose of immigrants coming to this country with nothing and building something. Now, what's the something's popping into my head here, Grace.
So the institution of the United States itself was to enable free practice of religion. That's the Pilgrim Fathers.
It was,
right?
but it was also enables people to become wealthy. There's many places in the world where you have to be wealthy, and then your wealth transfers through your family structure. So you have to be in a certain class, or you have to be within a certain family. But in America, you could be born broke from a poor family. I mean, let's look at let's look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama was born in Hawaii, and I know there's some controversy there, but he was born in Hawaii. He was raised by his grandma. He wasn't rich by any means. He was fortunate and was able to get his education, I believe, at Harvard, and that was done through scholarship. So I think that was a very nice gift for him. But he took that skill and he became president of the United States. In many other countries, the president of the United States is not going to come from, the president of that country is not going to come from somebody who had nothing as a child.
Right.
That would be very difficult.
And
true. I was thinking about our podcast.
Yes, a podcast.
Our podcast started with zero, nobody. This beautiful studio that you're witnessing right here today was not here. Did not exist.
Right.
These microphones did not exist. Our partnership did not exist. We had nothing. Nothing. We started with not even, a nickel.
Right.
And we
could have a voice.
We have barely more than a nickel now, but we are working towards this, and we have a voice because we live in a country that allows us to do that with free speech. So I think that's really important. But it actually allows Harrison Butker to have that free speech. Now, there may be some consequences that come from it, but he is allowed that right of free speech.